Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our April board meeting for all of the action items and that we need to move to this week or this month. And also, we're going to have some great presentations, a lot of recognition. So I just want to thank everyone for coming out to the board meeting today. And first order of business is we're going to have a roll call, and then we'll have our Pledge of Allegiance. Mrs. Sugars.
Mrs. Matlack.
Here.
Mrs. Neary.
Here.
Mr. Rossi.
Here.
Mrs. Seidel.
Here.
Mrs. Scarpolino.
Here.
Mrs. Schultz.
Here.
Mrs. Tong. Here. Dr. Wong. Mr. Goodwin.
Here. And now we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our first order of business is approval of minutes. Can I have someone have a motion to approve the minutes for the regular action meeting dated March 26th and the board work session meeting dated March 19th, as well as the executive sessions for both March 19th and March 26th. Mrs. Seidel and Mrs. Matlack. Mrs. Sugars?
Mrs. Matlack.
Yes.
Mrs. Neary.
Yes.
Mr. Rossi.
Yes.
Mrs. Seidel.
Yes.
Mrs. Scarpolino.
Yes.
Mrs. Schultz.
I need to abstain from the action meeting and the work session on March 26th. Yes to the rest.
Mrs. Tong. Yes. Mr. Goodwin.
Yes. Next, we have some recognition coming up and for the High School East Why not? Oh, I was like, how did that pronounce? Why not? Why not robotics team with Mr. Dilks, and also recognition of the research and science students from East with Mr. Nick Wright, and West with Mr. Brian Grillo. And I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Malash.
Thank you, Mr. Goodwin. I'm very excited that we have the opportunity to recognize some very talented and inventive and inspiring students tonight. And it's interesting that we're recognizing both the robotics team who just returned from the world competition, as well as the students who displayed their research and did the research in science. So I'm going to ask Mrs. Wilson to meet me up at the microphone, and then Mr. Dilks as we do the robotics kids first, and any of the administrators that are here from East, and then we'll do the same thing with the research and science kids. We'll go right from one end to the other. Then kids, after we give you the awards, you're going to receive a certificate. We'll shake hands. You're then going to come around and shake all the hands of the board members and the folks sitting over here at the side table. When you're done, you're going to meet Mrs. Wilson out front. She's going to snap a picture of you. You are welcome to come back because we're going to see a presentation on full-day kindergarten, which is going to be incredibly exciting. And we have I have no doubt. I look at the people that are presenting. I encourage you to come back, and we have the rest of the meeting after that where there'll be great discussion. So, Mr. Dilks, if you want to introduce just some of the background, and then Mrs. Wilson and I will meet you up at the microphone.
Sure, thank you. Welcome back, Dr. Malash. So my name is Joe Dilks. I'm the advisor for the Robotics Club. Ladies, come on up. So I'm going to ask the ladies just briefly to introduce themselves and state their the college they're attending and their major.
Hi, my name is Caroline Chung, and I will be attending New York University, and I will be studying integrated digital media.
Hi, I'm Vidya Sundar. I'll be going to Vanderbilt University and studying biomedical engineering.
Hi, I'm Iris Kim. I'll be going to Georgia Tech to study biomedical engineering as well.
Hi, my name's Sheer Goldfinger, and I'm going to attend Caltech for chemical engineering.
Hi, I'm Kaylee Scott. I'm going to University of Delaware majoring in biology.
So the ladies standing before you continued East streak of attending the World Championship. They're the only team that attended from East this year. The last couple years we've had 2 or 3 teams go. They had the best engineering notebook in the state, and this is the 2nd year running. They're holding that. That's a design notebook for their robot, including their autonomous, their programming, and all the things that make the robot work. They are the only team ever in New Jersey to win the engineering award 2 years in a row. They might be the only team that has ever won it twice. East has won that one prior time. So they've represented East at the World Championship for the 2nd year in a row. And this year they finished in the middle of the pack in their division of 100 teams. They were 55th. The record was 5-6, which is an improvement over last year. And that places them in the top about 1.5% in the world of 25,000 teams.
Okay, so just to reiterate, I'm going to read the names on the certificates, then we will do the recognition of our research and science students. Then all of you, if you'll follow me out front, will get a picture then. It will be an opportunity for pictures for parents as well. So from this group, we have Caroline Chung. Cher Goldfinger. Nafessa Jagadir. Right here. Iris Kim. Kaylin Payne, who also couldn't be here. Kaylee Scott. And Vidya Sundar.
He's got his little. Do you want to introduce just a little bit what the kids did, what the project is?
My name's Nick Wright. I'll speak on behalf of Brian Grillo, who is in the hallway with his kids. He's my West counterpart for the Research and Science program. The Research and Science program, if you don't know, is just one of the most unique programs that we have in our district. It's really a credit to the entire district that we invest all of our resources into an actual class in which students can, really take on a full year independent study course in whatever they like. And it's even more of a testament that we now have this year at High School East an opportunity for students to do that at the AP level with AP Research. So I'm just extremely happy to be here with the research and science students from East and West who recently competed at our local science fair at Camden County College called the Coriel Science Fair, won plenty of awards there, and then went on to the Delaware Valley Science Fair in Oaks, Pennsylvania, where they competed against, 2,000 students from New Jersey, Delaware, and Pennsylvania, and did really well there as well. We had several students win scholarships to several schools and different awards, so I'm really happy and proud to be here with our East and West research and science students. Come on up when your name is called.
Okay, Catherine De Pasquale. Brandon Shorzalewski. Stephen Douglas. Villain Duong. Lorraine Fanick. Casey Jones. Jack McCandless.
Thanks so much.
Samara Pritchett. Gia Toriello. Gabriel Warren. Ethan Anderer. Lucas Botello Pedersen. Jake Brooks. Laurel Decker. Arnav Goel. Harry Green. Jordan Grossman. Madeline Howe. Sarah Coe. Sarah Rathor. Kieran Santos. Hope Zhu. And Gary Yu. And we'll head out to the front of the building for pictures. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goodwin. It's always an incredible way to begin our meetings, not just with the Pledge of Allegiance, but to honor children. When we do our district administrative meetings, often we have them at High School East or High School West, and sometimes we have them here. And this year we've been fortunate because we've had different musical groups, either vocal or we had the bells at East. We've had parts of the musicals. It's always great for us to start with students and remind us what it is that we do and why we are doing it. So now I'm incredibly excited to ask Dr. Mahan to come up to the podium. Dr. Mahan and many members of the Full Day Kindergarten Curriculum Committee are here. So you've heard a lot about the committee, you've heard a lot about the folks and the work that has gone on. We have talked about full day kindergarten for a long time in Cherry Hill. I'm not going to go too much into it, but I just want to let you know that in 1997, the Elementary Redesign Committee in Cherry Hill recommended that we institute full day kindergarten in 1997. So 22 years later, we are almost there. So Dr. Mahan, you and the committee members,
Yes.
the floor is yours.
So committee members, if you'd come on up. I promised that this would only be 10 minutes, so I know we'll keep it short if we're all standing up here. So come on up. Come on up, Miss Scott. Come on up, come on up, come on. No, everyone. That way the speakers will keep it short and sweet. Come on this side. Okay. So I asked, this month we did not meet as a committee, and the members that you see represented here are probably about half of the actual committee. We had about 25 individuals who participated in the development and ultimately the implementation of full day K. And instead of meeting this month, I asked them to come out and show their faces to all of you and to be recognized, because without everyone who is present here this evening, and for those who were not able to be here this evening, this implementation would not be possible. It has been a significant amount of work and definitely a labor of love over the past year. And we still have work to do. However, I wanted to provide the board with a very quick update on some of the things that are happening in the next couple of weeks that are exciting for us as a district, us as a committee, and most importantly for the students we serve here in Cherry Hill. So with that said, each one of us, not everybody up here, about 5 of us, have a small section of something that we would like to share with you. And just to give you the brief topics, the first one is someone is going to speak in regards to the theme of collaboration and making sure that all voices are heard and how we communicate it as a committee. We will give an update on our visits with all of the preschool directors. We will talk about the integrated curriculum, a kindergarten academy, which is professional development that will be offered to all teachers, our orientation for all students and parents, our readiness bags, and then lastly, where we are in terms of positions and bringing new staff on board. So each one of those about 2 minutes, so we promise to be brief, and thank you. So first we have Ms. Winters.
Hi, good evening. My name is Gina Winters, and I'm a parent of students at Russell Knight Elementary School. I have a 4th grader, a 1st grader who has special needs, and then I have a future full-day kindergartner. He'll be 2 next month. And I'm here to talk about how the committee did its work and the collaboration that was put into planning for full day K in the fall. So the committee is comprised of a few different groups. It's administrators, it's teachers from all the different schools, including Barclay Early Childhood Center, and then there were community members that were selected, including myself. Most of us are parents, and most of us also have expertise in different aspects of things the committee thought was important for full day kindergarten. For example, social emotional learning, which was a key theme early on. We had an expert in dual language learners and ESL, because that's a big component of what kindergarten is going to look like. We had input from parents of students with special needs. So those are just a few of the groups that came together to talk about that. In addition, the committee looked outside of itself to get input from different stakeholders, such as the special ed PTA, who submitted questions that we considered in our collaboration, as well as going out and talking to members of the public and to all the different preschools in the district, which you'll hear about later. The committee, I feel, really did a great job of listening to what everybody thought full day kindergarten should look like, and considering both what would be best for all kindergartners and also how to integrate all the different diverse groups of kindergartners into what full day K looks like. And I hope you'll see that through our work tonight, that we have considered all these different groups. It was really a great process, to be honest with you. I enjoyed working with everybody here. I felt like all of our voices were heard, and I think you'll be really pleased with what you see that was put together for full day kindergarten. I'm really excited to have my son go in a few years. Thank you so much.
So one of the groups that we heard from were the preschool directors. We visited approximately 30 preschools around Cherry Hill Township, and we spoke to them about our implementation and what the expectations are going to be for students. Out of that came visits to some of our elementary schools. So the preschool directors reached out to some of our principals and said, hey, we'd like to actually see the current program. We want to continue to build a partnership. We want to make sure that our students are developmentally prepared academically and socially for the program that you are putting into place. They also came to tour our facilities so that they would be able to provide informed responses to questions from parents and from their parent community. So we will be continuing that partnership with all of the preschools, making sure that we are telling them what our program will look like, sharing our expectations, making sure that our doors are open for all of their parents. And that helped us to make sure that we had seamless parent community information nights at several off-site locations, mostly at many of the preschools. They hosted us. And it was something that they asked us to continue to do for the upcoming school year. So that is something that we recently have brought back to the district. That apparently that was in place a few years ago, and the preschools director asked us if we could bring that back. So again, continuing the communication, making sure that we have seamless partnerships. So with that, we move on to the integrated curriculum, because it will look a little bit different for upcoming school year.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Scott Goldthorpe, Supervisor of Curriculum and Instruction, typically in charge of science and world language. So it was really exciting to see the research in science and robotics students here getting recognized. But I wanted to talk about the integrated kindergarten curriculum. And I have a quote that I wanted to share. It says, "For the kindergarten child, the experiences of living and learning are inseparable." So we kept that at kind of like the heart of all of our conversations when talking about what's this curriculum going to look like for our youngest learners here. So what the committee has done is truly developed an integrated approach where English language arts skills are taught through the lens of science and social studies and mathematics, and really provides a seamless experience for our kindergarten children. I also wanted to publicly thank the integrated committee. So it's a little subcommittee of Dr. Mahan's giant committee, but they have worked so hard and done so much research to really put together a fabulous curriculum for our teachers to implement in the fall. So thank you, Integrated Curriculum Committee.
Hi, I'm Christy Morrell. I teach kindergarten at Barton currently. I'm going to talk about kindergarten orientation. It's something that we are keeping now consistent through all 12 elementary schools. It's going to take place in an evening, and it's a parent informational night. So parents will get to meet kindergarten teachers. They will get to meet important people in the building, such as the principal, speech, guidance, nurse. I think that's it. So that's going to be held in June. I want to talk about open house too. Okay. Well, that's our poster. It's beautiful.
So we had the committee, along with the elementary principals, created a poster which resembles the posters that we use for kindergarten registration. This is to advertise out in the community that we will be having orientations. These will be finalized tomorrow, distributed to all of the preschools, hung in all of our elementary schools, and hung around the community, similar to the way we advertise for registration. It's by school, different evenings. The presentation is standardized, so if a parent can't go to their own school presentation, they can go to another and they will be hearing the same information. We have one PowerPoint presentation that will be delivered. Some things are unique to the individual schools, but we want to make sure, again, that our messaging is the same, that it's consistent, and that everyone's hearing accurate information.
So because that is for parents, we wanted to also do something for children. So we made that closer to the start of school. The kids will get to come into their actual classrooms prior to school starting. It just relieves a lot of anxiety. They get to see their actual classroom. They get to meet their teacher for the first time before the craziness of the first day. They'll get to do a little scavenger hunt, and we're just going to make it really fun for the kids. So, okay.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Rachel Glass, and I am a kindergarten teacher at Russell Knight Elementary School. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the readiness bags that we're going to be providing to all incoming kindergarten students. So the readiness bags came about because oftentimes parents want to do something to help get their child ready for kindergarten, and oftentimes they're not quite sure what that is. So the readiness bag is our solution to give parents some guidance on what they can do to help prepare their child to come into kindergarten. So the readiness bag is going to come with a welcome letter that explains exactly how to use the materials. It's also going to come with 3 calendars for June, July, and August, with examples of activities that parents or caregivers can do with their child. And really the emphasis is for parents or caregivers to have face-to-face interaction with their child. These should be fun activities. They're developmentally appropriate for incoming kindergarten students, and they reinforce both fine and gross motor skills. They have activities like counting simple objects and other things to help prepare the foundational skills for kindergarten. And inside the bag are tools that parents can hang on to and use all year long with their child. So some of those items include 2 beginner pencils. They're pencils that have a thicker grip for kindergarten students to use. Also a communicator, which is a heavy plastic sheet that you could slide papers in. You can use an expo marker to write on and then quickly wipe off and reuse. Scissors, crayons, and also Play-Doh to help build those fine motor skills. And a summer journal for children to draw, write, label things that they've done over the summer, or even to document things that they've done with the monthly calendars provided. Thank you.
So as you can see, the committee has been busy. And in order to make sure that we have a seamless implementation, we will be hosting a kindergarten academy or kindergarten institute. There will be 2 days in May and 2 days in June for our current kindergarten teachers to come and learn about the following topics: social emotional learning, Eureka Math, the integrated curriculum, technology, because we just recently placed interactive flat panels in every kindergarten classroom, Performance Matters, which is our data platform system, and purposeful play. So there will be 6 topics that teachers will get targeted in specific professional development around educators who have strong knowledge in each of those areas, and they will be able to ask any questions that they may have, receive their answers, because we want to get them on the right steps or footing for implementation for September. So many of those things are changes for the upcoming school year, and we want to make sure that teachers have the materials and resources and access to members of the committee before they leave for the summer. And the last one, I know we have talked a little bit about hiring. We are interviewing numerous candidates for positions. With the implementation of full day K, we needed about 12 to 15 new positions, and that process has been centralized, where there are principals, central office administrators working together to hire staff across for the district. So with that, I would like to thank again publicly members of the committee who are here this evening, those who are not able to be here. For those of you who did not speak, if you could just come up quickly, sorry, Dr. Malash, and just introduce yourselves, just so that everyone knows who you are, because you did put a significant amount of time and effort into this committee, and I just want to make sure that people know who did the work.
Hi. I'll lift it up since everyone else is bringing it down. Hi, Trina Scott. I am the Special Education Administrator here in the district, and I just want to give kudos to Dr. Mahan, because without her organization and her ability to manage all of these different committees, subcommittees within committees, and I just want to acknowledge her and thank her for the work that she's done in allowing us to be a part of this. As a mother of twins at 16, I think back at the time that I was putting my children into school, and this is huge. This is huge for families and for children, so I'm proud to be a part of it.
Hi, I'm Kathleen McElhaney, currently Woodcrest Kindergarten.
Hi, good evening. I'm Christina Costantino. I'm a teacher at Barclay Early Childhood Center, and I was lucky enough to be a part of the committee this year, so thank you.
Hi, I'm Lynn Bresnahan. I'm the literacy teacher coach at Kingston School.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Lisa Sword. I'm the ESL kindergarten teacher at Johnson School.
Hi, I'm Allison Wiesek. I'm a Kingston kindergarten teacher, and I'm so excited to get to do all this next year. So thank you.
So thank you again.
And just Dr. Mahan and ladies and Scott, as you guys are, you can.
There were other gentlemen on our committee. They are not here tonight.
There were other folks that were involved. Just a special thank you from all of us for the time that you have invested in this work. We often, especially in education, we're good at times putting committees together that meet for a while and have some discussions, and then you wonder what takes place. And truly, the work that has come out of this is like it's like being in graduate courses for the course of the last 15 months to prepare for what's going to happen in September. And the work product is absolutely unbelievable. To see what a group of almost 25 people can do, inviting people in to come and talk, and as you guys talked about it and what it should look like, and Scott, your quote is fantastic that you shared. But the reading, the research, the development, the discussion, the disagreeing, the how to move forward, what a great example for all of us in terms of the work that's been done. Incredibly grateful and cannot wait for September when those children arrive. Well done.
I would like to second that. Great job, guys. Next on our agenda, we have correspondence, and I believe there's at least a couple folks that have correspondence. Jane,
Thank you. I just wanted to briefly say how it was Thursday, the 18th of April, that the Fair Funding Committee met again. It was not a well-attended meeting because it was the start of spring break and the start of the holidays, so I understand that. However, Dr. Malash was there to talk about the upcoming visit from the Commissioner of Education and to get some input on that. So I'm going to be very brief because he's going to speak about that. The committee did talk a little bit about maybe forming a volunteer committee that would go out to the community to sort of market the group and also what we're about, and because it is amazing how many people still don't realize how underfunded we have been from the state, and I think once people do, they'll be on board and trying to be proactive in doing things. So, but first you've got to get people informed. Again, just talking briefly about when the commissioner comes and the time frame of that and what schools will be visited, and asking for some input from the Fair Funding Committee and their members. And I know they are going to reach out to their members because, again, it was a tough night to have a meeting to get some information as to what they would like to see or what kind of asks do they think are important. You know, we know on our side what we think, but we want to know what the community thinks, and they've been involved also in this. So just wanted to let you know that we did meet. There will be another meeting in May, and so hopefully that one will be better attended. Thank you.
thank you. Oh, no? Okay. Any other correspondence? No? Okay. Well, if not, then it looks like we have only East representation here today. We're going to turn it to Julia for a report out for East.
Good evening, esteemed members of the Board of Education. I have an update for you this evening regarding recent events at Cherry Hill East. From student government, this past month, student body officers were elected by the school. The student body president for next year is Oliver Adler, and the student body vice presidents are Jeffrey Kaminer, Tyler Seaman, Paul Bruce, and Jake Brooks. Elections for class officers and class representatives will be taking place over the next couple of weeks as the year comes to a close. Student government has their annual trip to Six Flags at the end of this month, and this is actually for the NJASC, the Student Council, Spring Awards program. And I'm pretty sure that we're getting recognized for the Standards of Excellence Award that we're working on this year, so that's pretty exciting. Students enjoyed junior prom at the Collingswood Ballroom on April 13th, and the senior prom is coming up this month on the 30th, and we're selling tickets next week during AP testing. In athletics, the boys baseball team has had a very successful season. They have a 10-3 record, and yesterday they beat Washington Township 2-1. The softball team won yesterday against Haddon Township 15-8, and they're looking forward. They have their senior day coming up. They're hoping for some more wins. The volleyball team has a 4-7 record at the moment, but they're looking forward to what they hope will be a successful week. Yesterday they beat St. Augustine, so they're kind of hype about that. The boys tennis team had their 9th win of the season yesterday, and the varsity boys competed today at the Olympic Conference tennis tournament. Both lacrosse teams have been working hard. The girls lacrosse team had a successful conference win against Kingsway yesterday, 15-10, and the boys lacrosse team was working hard over spring break, ultimately beating NBC with a 15-8 victory last week. Both boys and girls track teams have had an incredibly successful season so far. They sent me a whole long list of all the individuals who have been achieving great things, but I didn't want to take up too much time. But they're achieving great things, and the team as a whole is just record-breakingly successful. So we're really excited for them. In the arts, the theater department and film students have been working on their last show of the year, the One Acts Play and Film Festival, which will take place on May 10th. This is one of the most exciting shows of the year because it's made up of 7 student-directed one-act plays along with multiple films that were all directed by students. So this showcases student talent both on stage and behind the scenes. The vocal and instrumental music departments are both preparing for their upcoming spring concerts later this month. Both departments are also sending groups to the Music in the Parks Festival at Hershey Park this Friday. The Mime Company will be hosting their annual Mime Ice Cream Social tomorrow night at 7 p.m. This event is always really fun, and it showcases the work of the Mime Company over the past year. And students will write their own skits, so they perform all of those. It's always really entertaining. We celebrated Multicultural Day on the Thursday before spring break. Students had the opportunity to see student-organized dance performances from 8 different groups, and dozens of other groups and clubs set up booths with food and information on their clubs in both of the gyms at the school. So this was a really fun day, and we want to give a big congrats to the Vietnamese Culture Club. They won the dance competition. Over spring break, many groups from East had the opportunity to go on a variety of different trips. French students had the opportunity to participate in the French exchange program this year. Students from France were in the U.S. earlier this year, and then students from East had the opportunity to spend their spring break with their host families. The theater department hosted a week-long trip to Rome and Greece, where students had the opportunity to see where theater began. So I've heard that was a really great trip as well. And as we saw, a robotics team from East, the all-girls team 2616Y, also known as Why Not, made it to the Worlds competition. And as they said, they've had a really, really successful season. Habitat for Humanity spent their spring break trip working on a build in North Carolina. And students who qualified for DECA Nationals left for Florida over break, and they're still at the competition. So we wish them the best of luck as they finish up there. And then on Monday morning, East was featured on NBC 10 between 6 and 7 a.m. I did not see it live, but I did see clips of it. Mr. Weaver, the school theater director, was featured for his work at the school and his nomination by his students for the Tony Award for Excellence in Theater Education. Kevin Nadio talked about the East being a school of character. He also sang with Alicia Casenza, and Dr. Perry talked about Why Not and their work at Worlds. And then regarding recent changes at the school, security camera installation at East wrapped up over spring break. So we do now have video surveillance in all non-instructional areas of the school. So we don't have cameras in the classrooms. But many people are really happy to see the security improvements being brought to the school. That concludes my update for tonight's meeting. Are there?
We have our first public comment. There's going to be 2 opportunities for public comment this evening. The first public comment session is for agenda items only, so only items that are currently on the agenda. And there will be another public comment section for any topic at the end of the meeting. So if you'd like to speak, please identify your name and address, and also identify the item on the agenda that you'd like to speak to. You'll be given 3 minutes to speak. Mrs. Wilson, you're going to have to look out the corner of your eye. Mrs. Wilson's going to be over there. She'll notify you when your 3 minutes are up. I think you'll get a yellow for 30 seconds. Yep. Okay.
Yoni Yaris, 422 Cherry Hill Boulevard. Section B, item 4. Probably going to be different than what other people are speaking about. My concern about tapping this much into the capital reserve prior to the report from the ad hoc committee is that there's the potential of the ad hoc committee choosing to go in a very extreme route. I don't know what it is yet because my wife has been very good about not sharing those conversations with me to respect that committee's work. But I want the rest of the group of us should respect what's going on in that room. And before we commit over $9 million into things. Let them do that process through. I know there are some limitations with state statutes, county statutes in terms of when we can tap into. I'm just concerned of throwing money at projects when we could be having a shift in direction for the district from this committee in terms of massive $1 million or multi-millions of dollars being spent, to allow that committee to really deliberate and take that 25 people in that room to do their job and not rush into spending money. These projects are important. The safety is definitely a concern around the East Auditorium. I just want to see more thought coming from the ad hoc committee and seeing where they want to put money and direction, buildings, number of buildings and things like that before we start emptying the coffers from the capital projects budget too much.
Thank you. Anyone else?
My name is Jeff Podowitz. I live at 110 Kilburn Drive, Cherry Hill, New Jersey. I guess I'm kind of talking about the same things. I'm talking about the adoption of the budget, which is the major thing. And maybe you want to even slow down on the adoption. What they were talking about on item 4, its total is $9.9 million. The budget itself has a special reserve fund of $4.8 million is being put towards the budget. And also I think we have a $3.46 million increase in the tax levy. Again, we don't have numbers for the budget, and that's very, very unfortunate. We don't have any numbers for the budget. Hillsborough did put it up, and I think you put it up last year, April 28th, but we do not have anything now. So that's a total of close to $18 million that we're adding from our funds to the budget. That's about $1,684 per student, and we don't even get that in aid. So basically, we're increasing the district's funds towards our budget without getting anything extra from the state of New Jersey. Now that's important when even you look at kindergarten. We just had a lecture about kindergarten here. What happens is that the school, and this is about funding, is that the state is still using the weight of 0.5 for kindergarten in Cherry Hill. We weren't even given the weight of 1 that may influence significantly some of the aid that we got. Yet, have you been in communication with the state about that half weight? All right. Do you understand? You have been. You talked to them. Do you know that the regulation limits the amount of children you have, but not the weight? So the number of children is 535, but the weight is not in the regulation. The regulation limits the 535. You have to use it from this year, but not the weight. So actually, the fact is that that weight is wrong, and actually the regulation says nothing about weight. Did you explain that to them? What? Because you just said that you right, but it has to do with the weight. So I don't know why they put it down as 0.5 weight when now next year the weight is 1. That's not what the regulation states. And I guess, did anyone on the board see this? See this page that has the weight and what they did? Are you going to fight that? Because I know the regulation, I read it, and the regulation does not state, talks about the weight, but does not, okay, it talks about the number. You have to use the number from last year,
Excuse
but
me,
not the weight.
Your 3 minutes are up.
Okay, well,
But
let
thank you.
me pass this out. If no one on the board has seen this, the board should. This is the first page. You all seen this?
You can just give it to me, and I'll make sure folks get a copy if they like.
You all know this? Have you seen this? Have everyone on the board seen it?
Just leave whatever. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that would like to speak?
Rick Short, 1002 Chelton Parkway. Tonight I'm talking about item number 8141. I'm asking the board to nix it, and I'm also asking the board to take about $2.8 to $3 million and invest in 14 unprotected, security-gapped schools with cameras and 3M films on the doors and on the classroom doors. This is what we should do. Right here, we have a normal school with security. Right here, we have 14 schools with 1 or 2 cameras. It's not acceptable. How do I know? Well, 60% of the public is telling you they want better security. 78% in a separate survey said your security is a failure. You don't want to repeat history. The only way to not repeat history is to fix the security gaps in 14 schools. There is no way possible that a masonry wall that is not going to fall in or is not in imminent danger is a better investment than 14 schools with cameras. Nobody in their right mind would argue that. No professional in the United States would argue this. This is not the route to take with this budget. Please, I urge you to adjust and protect 14 schools. It's so funny because on 319, Mr. Goodwin, at about 11 minutes into the video, said, let's all work together. We have the best police. We probably do. But we have security gaps, and they're obvious. There are 10 schools with security gaps. There are 14 schools with no live feed cameras. Again, you had a security plan on August 28th from a security consultant. On March 6th, there wasn't one thing released for the budget for security. This is unacceptable.
Ann Einhorn, 1017 Edgemore Road. So I know there's been a lot of buzz about the security or the lack thereof, according to some members of the public. It's a big school district. But I just want to go back to the Ronan security report that was released to the public. The number one thing they said was to control access to facilities and grounds. The number 2 item that was listed was lack of secure vestibules. The number 3 item was lack of a proper security education program for the entire district. Number 4 was deferred maintenance, and number 5 was lack of closed caption TVs. We can't do it all at one time. I don't know what the best plan is. I trust in the 9 of you, plus the district staff, to do the right thing to help our kids and our staff. Also, gently want to remind the public that may be watching that the bond question number 1 included security vestibules, district-wide interior and exterior security cameras, and building access control situations or control systems. We didn't pass that. Thank you.
Anyone else? Absolutely. Well, thank you for those that have provided comments. And now we're going to close this first public comment session, and I'm going to turn it to Dr. Malash for superintendent comments.
Thank you, Mr. Goodwin. As I got ready for tonight's meeting, I really wanted to be brief, but I haven't been here since the last time I gave an address was in December. So I think I've got 4 months that have built up. So get comfortable. Okay. Mrs. Sugars, honestly, I will not be that long. I first want to start by just saying thank you. Thank you to the staff. Thank you to the community members. Thank you for the support. It was a long 12 weeks that I was out. The last third was much better than the first 2/3, but it was really good to get back on April the 8th. I'm especially grateful to Lynn Sugars, to Nancy Adrian, to Barbara Wilson, to Lisa Ridgway, LaQuaya Wethington, Farrah Mahan, Justin Smith, and Don Bart. The other folks, administrators that you see sitting here at all of these meetings, all picked up many, many additional duties in the time that I was gone. Seamlessly, didn't complain, and kept the district going, kept us moving forward, and picked up so much. So I'm incredibly grateful to the team and to the perspective that exists. You know, it's sobering in so many ways, you know, to have an experience like that, and it really forces you to be reflective. One of the things that I used to always say when I worked at West, and especially even now, is school continues, right? None of us are irreplaceable. Even, you know, when things are challenging, the kids continue to come to school. And it's our responsibility as a school district to educate those 11,000 plus kids every day in an incredible environment, one that is safe, one that is nurturing, and one that stimulates learning for those children. So again, incredibly grateful to the administrators that are here in this room, to the rest of the staff throughout the district. Thank you for that. Julia, thank you for your comments. It's so much better to see and to listen to you in person than it is to watch on the live stream. I appreciate the information that you shared. You hit on a lot of things that I was going to talk about that have gone on at East. I've had the good fortune the last couple of weeks to be over there. I was there for Party Multicultural Day. Your athletic teams are doing really well. Also want to highlight that this Saturday, May the 4th, there's a district-wide East-West athletic competitions are going on pretty much all day over at High School East. There's actually a middle school track meet that'll take place first with all three of the middle schools, Beck, Carusi, and Rosa. And then there are athletic competitions, lacrosse, volleyball, softball, baseball, going on throughout the afternoon. So if you're around, stop by East or over in that area to see the competitions that are going on. Saturday is also Earth Festival. Sustainable Cherry Hill is now Sustainable South Jersey. The name has changed, they have expanded. The Earth Festival will continue to be at Croft Farm. That's going on all day. All 19 of our schools will be represented during the Earth Festival in a couple of ways. One where they all be represented is they will all have displays that are set up. In years past, we used to have the schools bring the displays and set them up here in the all-purpose room during a board meeting. Mr. Reardon from Stockton and Mrs. Tiernan from Cooper are actually going to do a slide presentation at the board meeting on the 14th so that everybody can see it. We don't have a ton of people down there, and it becomes a bit of a mess. So we're going to do a slide presentation that'll share information, and they'll be able to do introductions for the 19 schools. We think a little bit more efficient for the meeting on the 14th. So mark your calendars for those. The other thing, and Julia talked a little bit about this, are the upcoming spring concerts. There are spring concerts for our middle schools and for our high schools. Instrumental, vocal, senior solo nights. I encourage you to go onto the website. Mrs. Wilson pushes the information out. Find the concerts and go to see them. The level of talent to see these children perform is absolutely unbelievable. It's unbelievable. I'm telling you, when you go to the concerts, it will rival going over to the city and to see a professional orchestra or professional performers. So take a look at those, and please get out to see them. Just some updates in the last couple of weeks. Mrs. Scarpolino talked about the Fair Funding Committee meeting. We had a good discussion over the course of an hour or so on the Thursday night prior to spring break. Right, the Fair Funding Committee meets the same Thursday every month, so I was very excited to get back and to talk to the folks who were there. And honestly, the focus of our discussion, for the most part, was on a visit that's scheduled for next Tuesday on May the 7th, where Commissioner Repollet is going to come and visit Cherry Hill. So we are very excited. It's a momentous occasion for the commissioner actually to come down, spend some time here. We had one of the assistant commissioners was at Barton Elementary School earlier this year in March, Dr. Smith, right, that he was over there to look at some of the multicultural and cultural proficiency programs that we have going on. And now Commissioner Repollet will be bringing his full team with him. Also joining the commissioner that day will be Assemblywoman Lampett, Assemblyman Greenwald, and Senator Beach. Our three elected representatives in the state legislature. They are the folks that we have met with as a school district, the fair funding folks have met with, have been in contact with over the last number of years. We have continued over the last 3 years to continue to receive an increase in funding from the state. They've laid out and put in writing what they expect for us to reach our full funding over the course of the next 6 years, I believe it is, to get to that $29 million that we should be receiving from the state. So they will be here. We're incredibly grateful to Senator Beach for setting the meeting up. Senator Beach, if you recall, we had the discussion last year, set a meeting, members of the Fair Funding Committee, Mayor Khan and I went up and met with the commissioner not too long after he had been seated in May to talk about funding and the funding issues that we have as a district. When he is here that day, Mrs. Wilson and Dr. Smith and Mrs. Sugars and I will be joining this group and a couple of the board members, and we'll be visiting 3 schools in the district. We expect that he'll be here about 2.5 hours total. We actually have a school bus that we're going to get because trying to put all the number of people that are coming in, number of cars and carpool. So we're going to get a school bus and all meet here. We're going to be visiting Kilmer, Carusi, and High School West are the 3 schools that we're going to visit. And the primary focus that we have for when the commissioner is here, as it was introduced by Senator Beach and why he's bringing the team down, is the reality of our needs financially and the work that needs to be done in our schools. Now, we could pick almost any school in the district, including this one, to be able to highlight issues that we have with the facilities. The reason that we picked Kilmer, Carusi, and West are threefold. One is in their close proximity, right? They literally sit within a half a mile of one another in that little circle, and it's close to here to be able to get back and have continued discussion. 2, that is work that absolutely must be done in those schools. Carusi is one of the highest need schools that we have in the district, purely because of the asbestos abatement that must be done throughout that school. And I'm going to talk a little about that in a minute too, but we're going to focus on that. We're going to take a look in the gymnasium. We're going to look at the lockers that are in the locker rooms that are the same lockers that were kind of old when I was there in the early 1980s. They literally, the only change at Carusi in the boys' locker room is that they took 2 banks of lockers out. The rest of it is identical to what it looked like in the early 1980s to go through. That's our reality. There's work that needs to be done on the roof there. The roof needs to be replaced. We have not been able to replace the fire alarm system or the alarm system at Carusi because of the asbestos work that must be done. So we're going to talk about that with him. We're going to look at Kilmer. Kilmer is a place where we have started to remove some of the cabinetry. When you go into our elementary schools, when the schools were built, you have cabinets that sit near the bathroom, and even in classrooms where there isn't a bathroom, there are sinks and wood. Most of that is original. That wood is worn. The finish that's on that wood is worn. All it does is soak up moisture. What is a significant problem for us come August and September as we get back into school. We've done a lot of work over there during the course of the last 8 months or so, started to replace some of the cabinetry, and we're going to be able to show what we've done in some classrooms and some classrooms that still need to be done and what the issues are that exist, because that exists throughout the district. We're also going to talk about roof work and some other things that we've done on site. Then we go over to High School West. High School West is one of the oldest buildings that is in the district. We're going to look in the art rooms and see what that looks like. We're going to look in the food room. So food service and cooking classes, that it used to be, it's much more than that today, but when we were younger, we have a classroom at East and a classroom at West. If we had multiple classrooms, we could seat 300 to 400 kids in both schools in those programs. We can't, right? We have teachers that can teach 6 classes a day in them. When you look at the facility at High School West, it was antiquated if Mrs. Brady and Alice were cooking in the kitchen. And even Mrs. Buchanan, who's been there a few years, who's a phenomenal teacher, and Mrs. Dilba over at High School East, they do incredible work. The facility has got to be addressed. It has got to be addressed. We have roof issues. We have door issues. We're going to be able to point out in all of the schools that we visit, there are original classroom doors in most of our buildings. There's original hardware, original handles that are on the doors. They need to be replaced. We need to move forward in terms of what goes on. We'll talk about the other security items and the security issues that we've talked about throughout the district. So I'm incredibly excited about Commissioner Repillet's visit. After we visit each of the schools, we will reconvene back here at Malberg. We have members of the Fair Funding Committee, members of Zone PTA who will be joining us to address the commissioner as well. Mrs. Wilson and Mrs. Sugars have been working on a handout that shows some of the issues that we have in the district, gives background information for the district as well. And then we're going to go through and have asks. There are specific things that we are asking the commissioner for. We're currently finalizing what that list looks like because we want something that's tangible for him to walk away with, to be able to go back to Trenton and to work on for us, right? The esoteric or that large cloud of we need more money, we need help, we need this, they'll walk away and it's not there. So the concrete piece of this is what we want you to focus on when you get back to Trenton to help us, will be there for him. After he has been here, we'll then follow up. We'll do mailings out to Senator Sweeney, who's the Senate president, who has also been in here in district. Again, one of the most powerful politicians in the state. Invite Senator Sweeney to come in to visit. We will also invite the governor to come down and to visit. We will send the handouts. We will talk about what the visit looked like and ask those gentlemen to come down and to join us as well. Cherry Hill has been a poster child in the fair funding fight over the course of the last number of years. When there was the increase again last year, Cherry Hill was one of 4 districts that was continuously talked about in the press and that the legislators knew us by name. So I'm very excited about that taking place. Tied in with that, just those comments is, I'm also incredibly excited about the budget adoption tonight. Doing the work of preparing a budget for a school district that is our size is incredibly laborious. There's months and months of work that goes on behind the scenes. We formally start the process. We start discussion in September. The process formally begins in October of every year. Lynn Sugars and Lisa Ridgway and the staff that they have with them, as well as Dr. Smith and the building principals and the staff within the buildings, work incredibly hard October, November, into December. And then we have additional discussion beginning in January and February until the draft budget is presented. An incredible amount of time. As you can see, the budget that we're putting forward this year is a little more than $215 million. $215 million. And in a district our size, it's a reasonable amount of money. It's reasonable with where we are and what we are doing. I'm incredibly excited that we have, in terms of efficiency, been able to continue to add staff. The commitment that the district has made to the staff in the district is incredible, right? The most important resource that we have is truly the human resource. The most important thing when we talk about security and safety in our district are the human beings that occupy our buildings every single day. Last year, the district made the commitment to expand our campus police force. We went from 4 officers to 9 officers. We've discussed so many times, Mr. Saporito is the director of security, is armed. Our 9 officers are armed. And I don't think we could ask for better gentlemen or police officers to be in our schools and traveling throughout our district on a regular basis. The district made that commitment. We've put counselors in every one of our schools. We're implementing full-day kindergarten. And I think, Dr. Mahan, 16 staff members? Is that 15 staff members is where we are right now between kindergarten teachers and encore teachers, the folks that teach art and music and PE. That's where we are. And that commitment is there, and it's real. And there's a financial impact with that. But at the same time, there is work that has got to be done. I had the chance to see Maureen Rushi at a meeting this morning. Many of you know Maureen was the superintendent in Cherry Hill. A very bright woman, an incredible leader, and just a great person. One of Maureen's greatest quotes ever is that we must stop admiring the problem. We have to stop admiring the problem, right? There is work that has got to be done. I had the opportunity to sit in on the beginning of the ad hoc committee meeting. I've read the information, I've read the notes, and I'm looking forward to the next meeting, and honestly looking forward to the follow-up. When you look at the specific charge for the ad hoc committee about what they're going to do and the direction that they're being asked to provide the board, it's to provide direction. Even when that comes forward, and again, the discussions that have taken place are the possibility of a referendum in 2020, which is incredibly exciting and which will need to be done. But that's in 2020. There is work that has got to be done this year. There are 11,000, a little more than 11,000 kids in the district. We're going to be around the same thing next year, we expect. We have to provide the best education that we possibly can for those children while they are in our school district. We can't continue to talk about it. Some of the issues that we have identified in terms of the capital projects didn't just develop, right? It's work that has been discussed. It's work that boards and community members have talked about for years. We have to move forward. I don't want you to get lost, and I don't want folks in the community to get lost in the numbers, right? It's hard. It's difficult to fathom how big our district truly is. When you talk about 1.7 million square feet of schools, or 11,000 children, or 1,700 staff members, it is tough to fathom that, right? We are big. This is an incredibly large organization in terms of what we do. And we still get recognized because we're incredibly efficient in terms of how we spend our money. We have people that focus on that throughout the course of the year. So again, incredibly grateful to Mrs. Sugars, to Mrs. Ridgway, to Dr. Smith, and to their teams for the work that has gone into the budget. Mrs. Sugars, when it gets to that time, we'll be doing a little presentation to the board. There's been a lot of discussion, right? It's one of the values that goes in there. The discussion that has taken place at the board that goes back into March and with where we are tonight. So I think that's all I have. I think so.
Thank you, Dr. Malash. So now we're going to go ahead and move into our action agenda. And I'm going to start off with Mrs. Matlock, who has agreed to move the CNI agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goodwin. The superintendent recommends, and I move the following. Number 1, approval of attendance at conferences and workshops for the 2018-2019 school year. And number 2, approval of out-of-district student placements for the 2018-2019 school year. Do I have a second? Mrs. Scarpolino. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, Mrs. Sugars.
Mrs. Matlack?
Yes.
Mrs. Neary?
Yes.
Mr. Rossi?
Yes.
Mrs. Seidel?
Yes.
Mrs. Scarpolino?
Yes.
Mrs. Schultz?
Yes.
Mrs. Tong?
Yes.
Mr. Goodwin.
Yes. Thank you, Mrs. Matlack. Next, we have BNF, and I'm going to ask Mrs. Schultz to move those items.
The superintendent recommends, and I move the following. Number 1, financial reports. Number 2, adoption of the 2019-2020 budget. Number 3, maximize travel expenditures. Number 4, motion to approve use of capital reserve to fund approved projects for the 2019-2020 school year. Number 5, resolution for the awards of bids. Number 6, resolution for the awards of change orders. Number 7, resolution for the awards of transportation. Number 8, resolutions. Number 9, approval of Cherry Hill McKinney Vento DCPMP student going out of district for the 2018-2019 school year. And number 10, acceptance of donations. Do I have a second? Mrs. Matlack, are there any questions?
I have some questions regarding number 4, the capital reserves. I know when we approved the budget to be the preliminary budget, there was much discussion around those, specifically three of those items. 8132, which is wall repairs, 8141, masonry walls at East, and then the vestibules. There was a lot of discussion. There had been discussion about those projects, 2 of those projects, for some time through committee meetings. And I know that there was a number of board members who voted for those projects to be approved. And a few of those board members had mentioned that it'll be up for a vote again, and it could change. They could change their mind. And I know that there hasn't really been much public discussion on whether that has changed, anyone's mind has changed since then, regarding those 2 projects. With the future bond referendum coming up and not really knowing the scope of what East repairs may look like, given the fact that this particular the funds don't need to be spent at this moment. I know there's a timeline. If they are going to move forward with repairing the auditorium, that repairs want to start at the end of the year, if that's the route that it goes. So not knowing what the bond is going to hold, then there's a lot of security needs, and there's also ADA compliance questions regarding what items still need to be done above and beyond accessibility for stages. I know that there really hasn't, for me at least, I don't understand a clear path of paying for completely phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 2 is described, it'll be paid for through the bond referendum. And then that's $5.4 million. That's a lot of money coming out of our cap reserve for these 2 items that don't really need to be appropriated at this time. And I just think that at this point in time, I would like to first off hear if any of the board members have changed their mind on those 2 items. Either way, I'm prepared to make a motion to strike 8132, which is wall repairs for East, and 8141, masonry walls, leaving the vestibules in and allocating that money to security needs, which could include security cameras in remaining schools that they're able to be put in, swipe cards, 3M film, and then any ADA compliance issues. So that is the motion that I will make, or I am making at this point, if anyone has any questions about those. Is there a second?
Okay, so just for clarity, I just want to make sure I understand your motion. Your motion is to strike item or project numbers 8132 and 8141?
Correct.
And what else are you saying?
Allocate those funds, the funds that are allocated to that, to security, which could include cameras in the remaining schools where it's feasible to do now, 3M film, swipe cards, and then any ADA compliance issues that are still outstanding, which we're really not sure of the size and scope of them at this time. At least from a board member, we don't really know the size and scope.
Okay. All right. So that's the motion on the floor now. Is there any discussion or any items? Anyone have any comments on those items? Yes.
I have a quick question. Do we have more information on the ADA items at all? Or more detail on that?
Well, we
Or
will,
will we, I
all the ADA items will be discussed in BNF next week in the BNF committee, and we'll have clear direction on what we need to do and how we need to move forward with those.
You use your microphones out. On the budget that we have here, the piece of paper, I don't see the vestibule is listed in here. Which are the school that's going to be budget for the vestibules that we may be talking about?
Mrs. Tong, it's the third one from the bottom in the top box, says security renovations
Oh, okay.
at East and West.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I want to talk a little bit or elaborate a little bit about the east and west vestibule. Wondering if that's going to be like the vestibule, like you're going to close up the whole front, the how it's open right now, nice and wide. Are we going to totally close it up and leave it like a room so that someone cannot? I think we were at the paint last time, where the whole thing was all closed down. Is that what we are planning to do?
Are you asking over at East if the vestibule will run the full length of those doors that are there?
Yes.
I don't believe so.
No,
Oh,
no,
okay.
it will not.
Okay, just a one, I guess, one room, and then the west is just open, or how does it look like so that we have an idea how the vestibule is gonna look like on both east and west?
Are you familiar with the entrance of West?
No, the east I do.
Okay, so West is a completely different setup than East, and it's much more conducive to modeling the vestibule similar to as in the other districts with the two sets of doors because of the type of entrance that it has. East will be a limited area that will be near the desk where you go in now. So traffic will be directed in through that set of doors and towards that window that you go to now for entrance there. But it won't take up the whole lobby area.
Okay. So what is the purpose of vestibule? If they already have, the way they have it right now, they can, I guess there's someone there at the time when you buzz in, they're there. So what is the purpose of that vestibule? How are we gonna make it
Right now,
secure?
you would be let into the building, you would have access to the entire building. In the new setup with the vestibule, you would have access into the vestibule, you'd be held into the vestibule where either you can drop off your items, someone can come and meet you if you have a meeting with someone. If you need to get your child from the nurse, you can be released to go to the nurse's office, but there would be more control over access to the building once you're in the building.
Okay, are the doors, if there's like 4 or 5 panels, are those 4 or 5 panel doors will be taken out?
No,
Okay, so,
no, they will not be taken out.
okay, so I guess at the time for the student to go in and out, they are open, I guess, right?
Correct.
In that sense?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
all right.
Since the ADA is going to be discussed in the BNF meeting next week, and I think we also have the final ad hoc committee, could we then just postpone until we have those conversations and then reconvene on those projects after understanding in the BNF on the ADA items and then the outcome, or at least directionally, from the ad hoc committee?
If you're talking about postponing the public hearing on the budget, which is what we're conducting tonight,
No, just the allocation of the items from number 4.
well,
Not
it's
the
part,
remainder
it's
of the
part of
budget.
the budget. So it's a package deal. So either you would have to change what you're doing tonight, and then you'd have to wait and allocate at a different time. You can allocate during the course of the year if it is deemed to be emergent, which this would not be deemed to be emergent. So then you would be able then to allocate as part of your budget process next year, but you'd have to wait for a year. At this point, you have to have your public hearing by May 7th. So that's the reason why we're doing it now. we have to have the public hearing between April 24th and May 7th.
Mrs. Sugars, I think I asked this question before, and I just want to ask it again for clarification. So tonight would be the opportunity to sort of reserve this amount of money included in the budget. However, there are opportunities to potentially change what this money is spent on down the road if we were to have some items come out of the ad hoc committee that had us want to change direction, or if, for example, we moved forward with alternative funding and the auditorium and magically $15 million was donated in the next 6 months. I just want to make sure that I'm understanding that we're allocating it, we're saying these are the projects that we are the best fit and the most important right now, but there is an opportunity to course correct or make changes along the way if necessary.
Yes.
Thank you.
Votes.
So I kind of wrote my thoughts down. I'm going to take a stab. Right? So, right, wrong, or indifferent, this is my opinion that we're no longer in a position as a district to use our capital reserve money for other projects. By no way does this mean that I don't support them or the safety of all our students. I'm just simply stating that when the bond failed, the district was forced to look at the outstanding projects and make difficult choices on where the capital reserve funds would go. Everyone certainly has an opinion on what should be done, and I appreciate all sides and take all of them into an account. When I came to vote yes, based on the safety of all students and allocating the funds with the perspective that the projects that are in the most serious state must be addressed now. We can't assume that we'll secure money through naming rights, a bond, fair funding, or various sources. Again, I fully support all these means. We'll work to help them come to fruition, but I don't think the best way to stall critical projects and not move things forward is to continue the discussion on where to reallocate the money. Our buildings simply cannot afford it. We've run out of time, and now our wants and needs must truly be evaluated, and the money spent on things that we originally did not intend it must be used now. While I can appreciate the needs for new auditoriums, a $5 million savings to the district is a much wiser decision when we are financially burdened with a laundry list of improvements. Finishing the vestibules at the high school completes and complements the swipe card and camera systems that have already been installed. Moving forward with this investment is no way the district's place of saying we don't care about security. It's simply completing a recommended practice at both our high schools, tying a bow on a project that was started, if you will. I know I don't start things that I don't finish, and I wouldn't expect anything less from the district. I am certainly most disappointed that the bond failed, because now I see us having to allocate $4 million to a wall replacement at High School East. We can't go back in time, we can only go forward. Our options are to use the capital reserves or continue to let the wall deteriorate. When we look at the safety of the students, the timing of the next bond, I would agree with the experts we have hired and the administration, and we cannot afford to wait. If we all had to make the same decision on replacing walls in our homes or pushing it out to 2 years in hopes that funding would come our way, we would all fix the wall. If I'm not willing to do this for the 4 members of my family, I can't vote no for the thousands of students at High School East.
To answer Mr. Rossi's question about whether anyone changed their mind or not, I wouldn't say I changed my mind. I had concerns and questions, and I feel like I've gathered more information and I have a better understanding of what these projects are for, which I think has helped me make my decision. But I just, again, I want to state them because I want people to hear my reasoning, but I also want anyone, if I'm wrong, to correct me on my understanding. My first confusion was where it says wall repair east for $1 million and then masonry wall repair for $4,470,000. I was not sure if, is this all the auditorium? What wall is which? And from what I understand, the $1 million is for the wall repair that is necessary at the auditorium. That's a safety issue that needs to be addressed. And the masonry work is unfortunately the work that just has to be done on that building, that we have already done about 30% of it. And whether it was an error in design or just the way they built buildings in the past, whatever it is, we have no recourse against the builder, and it has to be fixed because that ultimately is a safety issue, is fixing the masonry walls. So to me, that it might not be, you know, an emergency today, but it is not something that can keep waiting down the line. As these walls need to be addressed. They can't just be put off. So that to me made sense. And I also had concerns about if it's $12 million to fix the auditorium and $17 million to build one, why not spend, not that $5 million is nothing, but why not spend $5 million and get a brand new auditorium? And what, you know, wouldn't that make, you know, it'd be a showpiece for the district and it improve even just the look of the building and the use of the building. And my understanding is that the renovation project for $12 million will basically be like when you take your kitchen down to the studs and redo the entire kitchen, you know, but maybe shoring it up too. Maybe your kitchen wasn't, you know, needed a support beam, and so you're making it safe, but you're also, the interior is going to be whatever you want it to be. So ultimately, we could have the same project, we could have the same, a new building, almost a new building for a $5 million savings, instead of spending an extra $5 million to tear it down and build new. So to me, that makes more sense because I think, again, $5 million isn't nothing. And if we can have the same end result and save the district $5 million that can be used in another place, including security, then that makes more sense to me. So to answer your question, I hadn't made up my mind before, but I am in favor of supporting these projects because I think, again, if we could do everything, I would love to do everything. But what we can do, these make the most sense.
Mrs. Seidel.
So, Ms. Scarpolino, I want to thank you for sort of elaborating on the difference between the two projects, because I know that I was slightly confused about that, and I think there were others, both at the board and in the community, that were as well. So I definitely appreciate that, that explanation. And then again, Mr. Rossi, to your point, I had some concerns about spending the money like Mrs. Scarpolino did for almost the identical reasons, but for, again, I was able to get additional information that helped me sort of come to the same conclusion that Mrs. Scarpolino came to regarding the auditorium. Regarding security, I've always been a firm yes on completing the security vestibules at East and West. Mrs. Schultz alluded to that was just one piece of a bigger picture and a bigger puzzle that we've been working on for many years. I think it's really important to spend just a minute or two to talk about what that bigger picture is, because there has been a lot of discussion about the security, and it is more than just any one of these pieces. Cameras in our schools are not going to automatically make our schools better, just like vestibules in our schools aren't automatically going to make our schools better, nor will swipe cards. This suite of security products that the administration had presented to us years ago was thought out, well thought out. They had many experts weigh in. Whether or not everybody agrees on the validity of those experts, we can agree to differ. But there were many experts, such as the Department of Education, Chief Monahan in our police department. Mrs. Sugars had colleagues and experience in her former job, which, let's face it, when we hire people and we bring people in, we hope they bring their expertise and their contacts with them. The administration feels strongly about this. You know, we had a great idea and a plan, and that is a multifaceted plan that starts with controlling access to our buildings. And we can control access to our buildings with swipe cards. We can control access to our buildings with vestibules. Will they keep everyone out? No, but there is no fail-safe solution. Then once you get into our buildings, it's about our school climate. It's about our mental health initiatives for our students. It's about enforcing the policies and procedures and protocols that we have in place for our staff. We now have the armed police force. I mean, there is a whole suite of things that make our students, protect our students and our schools. And for me, that is why I really believe in this security plan. From the start, I have been upset that we've called it a vestibule, because we've really done ourselves a disservice by giving it this name. It's really so much more than that. So I am firmly in support of spending the money to finish what we've started at East and West. And I hope we find the money to do all of that in all of our schools, because that's what all of our kids deserve. They deserve that full package that is coming highly recommended by the administration, who I trust to make the decisions for our kids. As Dr. Malash says all the time, his primary goal is the safety and security of our children. And that's where I stand on that. So thank you.
Just to be clear, I am not asking to strike, and the motion does not state to strike 8142 security vestibules. I'm actually stating we keep that and we allocate the money for the additional items, for the additional schools in the security suite that you've just discussed, just to be sure. I just want to be clear of that.
Right. No, I understand that. Okay. I mostly was calling it out because there's been a lot of discussion in the community, and I feel it's really important that people understand. I mean, I'm speaking only for myself, but people need to understand that it's more than just vestibules. It's a nice catchphrase and a nice talking point, but it's not at the heart of what we're going for here.
Thank you. I've sat on the BNF committee with Mrs. Schultz as chair this past year. And Mrs. Schultz, I'd just like to say, well stated. You really summarized for the community and the rest of the board members the process, we went through and discussed with our administrators and our experts, to get to this point. We all had questions, we all had concerns, and we are all here to do what's in the best interest of all the students. We all have priorities, and we don't have the money to do all of them. So we have to prioritize. As board members, that's not our area of expertise, and that's not our job to do. That's the job of our administrators and the experts that we have hired. And they have done that and presented to us what our most dire needs are and what we need to move forward with. And through our committee meetings, we have discussed that, and I won't reiterate what Mrs. Schultz has said, but that for me personally, that was my way of trying to decide how should we move forward. It was exactly the same process that we did through the committees. We asked questions, we asked for considerations of other options to move forward, and we asked for clarification on those items. And then we took those answers and those recommendations and made our decisions to move forward. This is what we have tonight proposed by our administrators, and my feelings have not changed since the last time we discussed this. I am in favor of moving ahead with these repairs that are an extreme health and safety issue to our students that we need to take care of. And as Mrs. Seidel said, our security is so much more than just some of the things, the physical things that have been listed. And as Dr. Malash has said, the human resource is one of our greatest assets. And those things are invaluable to us when it comes to security. It's not to say that we don't need any of those other physical security measures, because those would be awesome to have. But we have to prioritize. We don't have a bottomless pit of money that we can just dip into and do everything that we want. We have to prioritize. And I feel that what the administration has presented to us as our priorities is well thought out, and I'm in favor of moving ahead with it.
I think it's unfortunate that we have to submit it as a package, given the closeness of those other two meetings. But if we allocate this 9.9 million now and submit it, and there are additional ADA concerns that we have to address, what fund would that then come from? Do we have to allocate it from that 9.9? Where would we get those funds?
I think most of that would probably come out of the maintenance budget.
Thanks. But if that's allocated, then do we have to reallocate those funds in that maintenance budget?
We have a certain amount of funds that we allocate every year for ongoing maintenance, things that, we don't necessarily know about at the time we do the budget, but we know, could become issues. So, I think for the most part, and we'll talk about this more next week, as we're talking about signage, we're talking about, making sure we have enough parking spaces. We already have the money set aside to do the stages. So I don't think that there's going to be a tremendous amount of things that we would do above and beyond that we couldn't handle through our regular operating budget.
I need to clarify something. Reference the 12 million compared to the rehab and the new construction, 12.2 million on the rehab and 17.7 for the new construction. And I also heard about there is also possibly about 30% that would taken that portion of the 12 million. When you add that up, is it true that will be about 15 million totally compared to 17 million? When I think the engineering guy or the architectural guy was talking, there might be a plus and minus taken off for the 30% that we're not sure when they do the masonry walls, when they take everything apart. There'll be some other things that might be add on to that construction or the renovation.
I believe that when they gave us their estimates, they gave us the worst case scenario estimates, which was the 12 million. If we were to fund part of that through the bond referendum, potentially there would be funding that would come from the state to cover part of that, which actually would bring that cost down to about 8.6 million, I think it was. So you're really talking about the difference between 8.6 million and 17 million for the complete, tear down and rebuild of an auditorium. But I believe that, John and Mr. Bessica were very careful to try to give us the worst case scenario numbers now so that there wouldn't be sort of that swing in surprise. Once they get in there, they haven't completely, they don't know completely what they're dealing with till they get in there, but they've tried to estimate what the worst case scenario has been so that we would be prepared for that.
So that is the 12 million they were talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
What happened if, like you said, the worst case scenario, it could be worse than what we're not sure what's inside the wall right now? We know there was rats running to high school, there's smells in everywhere. So in that case, even the roof is leaking. Wouldn't there be molds and all that stuff maybe built in there that we might have to extract later or do other stuff, what's called restoration? Wouldn't there be more cost to that?
So are you
Let me just, Ms. Sugars, before you, we've had issues with mice. We have not had rats.
Oh, I'm
There have
sorry.
not been rats in any of our schools. There are no rats. There have been mice, field mice.
Okay.
So are you talking specifically about issues in other places of the building, or are you talking
I
about
think in
the
general.
in general?
Because
So
I have.
we know that
Uh-huh.
we need to do some roof work, and that's in this budget, right? We
Mhm.
talked about doing roof work over the dance gym area. And we know that the next priority is the wall work, and we've allocated funds for that as well. There's always going to be things. I mean, 2 years ago, we had a March windstorm, and, the next thing I know, we're replacing part of the roof over top of the auditorium. There's always going to be things like that. That's why we didn't allocate all of the capital reserve funds. And as Mrs. Seidel said, we set these things aside, and this is what we plan for. If things come up in the interim, we have to kind of shift some of those funds around. We have the opportunity to do that. We don't have crystal balls. We don't know. We can only plan with the information that we have right now. You know, we've done a lot of wall work at East. We most recently just did the operational area, which I think we showed you on the tour, where the boiler rooms are. You know, that was a major project that we did. We did work in some of the other courtyards. You know, we have our breezeways need to be addressed, and this will address some of those areas as well. I mean, it's just work that needs to get done that we're aware of. There's always going to be things that come along that we're not aware of that may not even be at East. They may be at another building. So, you know, we have to be, that's why we didn't spend all of the capital reserve funds. We left some, held some back. And, you know, again, each year we're going to have to evaluate and decide what the priorities are. With the bond referendum not passing, you know, had it passed, we would be using these funds for other things. We would not be using them for these types of things. Right. Unfortunately, we're in a position where we have to make some difficult decisions.
Thank you.
Quick question on that. So we'll spend the 9.9 million. What will that leave us in capital reserve?
So we have 12.2 right now. If we spend all 9.9, you know, that leaves us 3.3 left. We have been able, through our annual budget at the end of the year, to contribute about $5 million back into it. So I'm hoping that, you know, we'll be back around the $5, $6, $7, $8 million mark next year.
Okay, so I think we've had the discussion, and one thing I do want to say before we take a vote on the specific amendment that Mr. Rossi proposed, I just want to say I really appreciate the collaboration as well as the pushback. I mean, because that's what this board is about. We have to make sure that we ask the right questions, push back where we think we want to push back, and where we feel passionate about things. So I appreciate the discussion. I appreciate the passion. Also, I appreciate people really being thoughtful in terms of how we're thinking about these things and making sure we're making the very best decisions for our kids. I mean, for all the kids in our district, as well as our staff, as well as the community in terms of how we allocate these funds. So I just want to thank everyone for that discussion. And I do believe at this point in time we can take a vote on that amendment. And the amendment was to strike items, the proposed, I can't find it now. Okay. All right. So the proposed amendment, right? Or what am I saying, right? 8132 and 8141, and to add in security where, you know, not necessarily specified. So that's what we're going to first vote on, whether or not we're going to accept that amendment. So a yes means we want to accept the amendment. A no means we do not want to accept that amendment. Do I have that correct? Okay, great. So I'm gonna, any final questions before we move? Go ahead.
I think, was it security and ADA or just security?
It was security and ADA. Specifically, security was cameras, swipe cards, where able, and 3M film.
Okay. All right. So is everyone clear? I think I'm clear too. And I'm gonna turn it to Mrs. Sugars.
Mrs. Matlack?
I'm a no. I'm not in favor of removing those items from the capital projects list.
Mrs. Neary?
Yes.
Mr. Rossi?
Yes.
Mrs. Seidel?
No.
Mrs. Scarpellino?
No.
Mrs. Schultz?
No.
Mrs. Tong?
Yes.
Mr. Goodwin?
No. So with that, the amendment is now voted down. So the next vote we'll have is on the recommended items as they're listed in the agenda. So, Mrs. Schultz, is there anything you want to add before we?
Do you need me to reread everything, or can we read?
Okay.
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 Perfect. So I need to abstain to Bayaudo Home Health on the bill list. Yes to the rest.
That's okay. I was going to ask her first anyway. That's okay.
Again? Oh.
Okay, I got it. That's all. I got it.
I'm Ruth Schultz.
Mrs. Matlack,
Yes to all.
Mrs. Neary,
Yes.
Mr. Rossi,
I need to abstain on the bill list pertaining to Heather Rossi, and I am a no on 8132 and 8141. I'm a no on item 4.
are you yes to the rest?
Yes to the rest, yes.
Mrs. Seidel,
I need to abstain with respect to CDW on the bill list. Yes to the rest.
Mrs. Scarpellino,
Yes to all.
Mrs. Tong,
I am no to item 4 and yes to all.
Mr. Goodwin.
Yes. Thank you, Mrs. Schultz. So next we have P&L, and I'm going to ask Mrs. Scarpellino to move those items, please. Sorry, I skipped right over HR. Mrs. Seidel, will you move the HR items, please?
I sure will, Mr. Goodman. Did I say Goodman? Goodwin. The superintendent recommends, and I move the following. Number 1, termination of employment certificated. Number 2, termination of employment non-certificated. Number 3, appointments certificated. Number 4, appointments non-certificated. Number 5, leaves of absence certificated. Number 6, leaves of absence non-certificated. Number 7, assignment salary change non-certificated. Number 8, other compensation certificated. Number 9, first reading of revised policy. And you all have a pink sheet in front of you, which has additions to number 1, 2, and 3. Do I have a second? Mrs. Schultz. Any discussion? Seeing none, Mrs. Sugars.
Mrs. Seidel,
Yes.
Mrs. Matlack,
Yes.
Mrs. Neary,
Yes.
Mr. Rossi,
Yes.
Mrs. Scarpellino,
I need to abstain to item 3 as it pertains to Drexel University. Yes to the remainder.
Mrs. Schultz,
Yes.
Mrs. Tong,
Yes.
Mr. Goodwin.
Yes. Thank you, Mrs. Seidel. And I jumped the gun there, but now we're actually to P&L, and I'm going to ask Mrs. Scarpellino to move those items, please.
Certainly. The superintendent recommends, and I move the following. Number 1, first reading of policy and regulations. Number 2, second reading of policies and regulation. Number 3, waiver of regulation 2340 field trips. Number 4, approval of harassment, intimidation, bullying investigation decisions. And you have a green sheet, another item 4, approval of harassment, intimidation, bullying hearing decision. Do I have a second? Mrs. Matlack, are there any questions? Seeing none, Mrs. Sugars.
Mrs. Scarpellino,
Yes.
Mrs. Matlack,
Yes.
Mrs. Neary,
I need to abstain from item number 4. I wasn't present. Yes to the rest.
Mr. Rossi,
Yes.
Mrs. Seidel,
Yes.
Mrs. Schultz,
Yes.
Mrs. Tong,
Yes.
Mr. Goodwin.
Yes. Thank you, Mrs. Scarpellino. Next, we have our strategic planning. We don't have any items to move, but we do have discussion there.
Yes, I believe we are going to have a recap of the ad hoc committee meeting. So I'll ask Mrs. Seidel to do that.
Okay, Mrs. Seidel.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Matlack and Mr. Goodwin. So, our second ad hoc Facilities and Referendum Committee meeting was held on April 16th at 7 p.m. As I discussed during the last recap, there were several documents the committee asked for to prepare for meeting number 2, and we did receive those prior to the meeting. We had a lot of homework before the second meeting. We received the teacher survey prompt responses, an overview of the required process for preparing a referendum, and answers to other questions that specific committee members had, such as capacity of our schools and enrollment projections. This meeting was very productive. The room was organized into small groups this time instead of the larger group discussion. The first thing was we received some additional information. Before we got started, we were able to receive the prompts from the East and West Student Forums, which had just wrapped up that day, as well as the summary of the responses from our students. Again, as I mentioned, the room was organized into small groups, and we were instructed to discuss the following questions. There were 3 questions. The first was, what did you learn from the survey results that translates into a specific action that the board should take in making decisions on content, cost, polling, and/or communication? Number 2, from your individual understanding, expertise, and hopes for meeting the facility challenges, what do you consider to be an essential or critical actions for the board to take in preparing the next referendum process and vote? And number 3, beyond a short-term vote to address health, safety, and security, what do you recommend that the board do over the next 2, 5, 8 years to plan and communicate longer-term pathways to address the quality of Cherry Hill School facilities? Midway through the meeting, committee members were asked to rotate to a different group so that they could share thoughts and perspectives with others. And there was a note taker assigned at each of the groups that kept a tally of what was discussed. Once the second meeting was over, each group was asked to have their note taker or a representative add their comments about the short-term referendum goals, as well as the longer-term, longer-range plan goals to master trackers that were listed around the room. They were those big Post-its around the room. Once they were all up on the board, Dr. Wilson then reviewed the information to make sure that everyone understood the nature of the comments, and so that she was able to interpret what the groups really meant, and there were some clarifications, so it was a really great discussion. The goal of the next committee meeting, we will receive those summaries in advance of the meeting. And then that meeting goal will be to take these lists and start to prioritize what should be included in the next bond referendum, what's important to include, and how should that be developed. So those shorter term bond development items are things like timing, voting hours, communication strategies, specific actions that might go into creating the referendum, such as diving a little deeper, using security as an example. Overwhelmingly, security is a priority, but what does that mean? What does that look like? How do we drill that down into what is included in the bond? And then on the longer term side, things that the committee wants the administration and board to focus on in tandem with the bond referendum, things like consolidation, naming rights, alternative funding, fair funding, continuing those initiatives, and those are some of the things that are more on the longer term track. So again, as I mentioned in my previous summary of the April 2nd meeting, that's sort of the charge of this committee, is that dual tracked. There were also some follow-up items that were requested for the next meeting, so again, that we could be prepared. They were summary of district maintenance spending and documents, the outlines of the 2020 plan presentations, not specifically just the bond referendum presentations, but the overall 2020 plan as it was originally rolled out that included more than just the bond. For example, full-day kindergarten was part of the original 2020 plan. And then our next meeting is scheduled for May 7th at 7 p.m. Any questions? Mrs. Matlock?
Will that be the last meeting, or will there be more meetings after that one?
So we had set a goal to have recommendations to the board for June of 2019. So that is our planned final meeting, in the hopes that we get a lot of work done at this next committee meeting. But I think that we've built in some time for ourselves to be able to get another meeting in if necessary. But to answer your question, for right now, yes, that is our last scheduled meeting, and we are going to work hard to get some recommendations together to present to all of you for June.
So June is the goal for us to hear the recommendations?
That is the goal.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. So the recommendations will be, presented in writing to the board. Will they be shared with the public at that time?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Will there be a follow-up once the board adopts a plan to the committee heads at least?
Yes. So actually, that was one of the long-term recommendations that the committee made during our discussion at the last committee meeting, was the need for ongoing and follow-up dialogue. That, it's not really a committee that's a one and done. And I think we all agreed that that was a great idea when we saw it go up on the board. So I would imagine that we will certainly take the committee up on that idea. Did I miss anything, my co-committee members? All right. Thank you. Back to you, Mrs. Matlack.
Back to you, Mr. Goodwin.
Well, thank you very much, Mrs. Seidel and Mrs. Matlack. I believe that's all the items we have at this point. So I want to open it up for a second public comment. And this second public comment section is open to speak on any item you like. Please speak into the microphone clearly, speak your name and address, and you'll be given a maximum of 3 minutes. Mrs. Wilson will hold up the yellow paddle. Did I say it right? When you have 30 seconds left, and the red when you have when your time's up. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Mindy.
Hold on, just a second.
I apologize, Mrs. Rosen. I just wanted to thank Mr. Saporito as I went through my notes, the stuff that I written down from the time that I was out as well, and the work that he did in keeping me informed of what was going on.
Okay, don't count yet,
Thank you.
Barb. Don't start yet. Start. Okay. My name is Mindy Rosen. I live at 6 Fairhaven Court. I've written to all of you. I'm surprised you haven't acknowledged my correspondence, but here I am. I agree with you, Mrs. Schultz. I also don't start things that I don't finish, and I started this in the year 2000 when I filed an OCR complaint against the district for accessibility and ADA violations. The district was cited, and here we are today. People come to the board and ask for what they need or for what they want. I am here now to ask you to follow the law. We are not ADA compliant in many schools. So today I'm here to tell you to teach our children and our families by your actions. How you treat your most vulnerable students says volumes about you. So I'm really just here to say, follow the law. The ADA was written in 1989, 1990. We are here 30 years later. I filed 19 years ago, and sadly, 19 years later, I am going to be forced to file again because you refuse to follow the law. It's really just that simple. And I'm really sad about it because I've tried, I've met with many people, I've written to the school board, I've written to everybody that I've said that I would, was asked to write to. I was hello Mindy, now I'm hello Mrs. Rosen. But, it's the way it goes when you're fighting for something that you believe in. So I'm just asking you to follow the law.
Thank you.
Miriam Stern, 121 Ashford Road. Wow, that's really loud. A couple things. First of all, I just wanted to follow up. Mrs. Seidel, you made a comment about the magical $15 million we might possibly get. And although it does seem rather magical, I think in most people's lines of work, we talk about big, hairy goals. I left the A word out. And I think we need to have big, hairy goals. And I think that the community has given a mandate. And my understanding from dialogues and some folks on the ad hoc committee, the community clearly has stated there needs to be a large vision. And unless we really shoot for a large vision, I think if we don't ask for it, we're not going to get it, and if we don't push for it. So I'm really hoping that the board will really take that to heart and push hard for these things. The other thing I just wanted to say is I think we really have to give a lot of credit to Senator Beach. At least I personally feel like I need to. He started this ball rolling last year with the commissioner. He met with a bunch of us parent advocates. Lori Neary was in that meeting, Kim Friedel, and as a result, we had this amazing meeting with the commissioner, Part A. And this year, we, again, Jane Scarpolino and I and Jen Fleischer met with Senator Beach as a follow-up, and we asked him for his help again. And again, he came through with arranging this visit from the commissioner, and my understanding is there's not just the commissioner, but there's other people who are decision makers who are coming. This is, I mean, to me, just checking my time, an unbelievable opportunity. To me, it's like I couldn't even honestly dream that this would happen. So I'm thrilled. I'm so excited that, there's such a momentum with the administration and the board for this meeting. I think it's going to be huge. And I think we, again, we have to ask for our urgent, emergent needs. We can certainly ask for, extra special ed help. God knows we need it in our district, including for ADA compliance stuff. And I think we have to. The squeaky wheel gets the oil. If we ask, I think we'll get. So anyway, thank you all, and Dr. Smith too, and thank you for the collaboration with the parents and the Fair Funding Committee. It's I think a very positive step. So I'm excited. Thank you.
That's okay. My name's Beth Perlman. I live 1816 The Woods 2. I just want to know which stages are included in the budget for the ADA compliance. Thank you. Oh, and Dr. Mahan, I know that you're very hardworking. I see you at every meeting. Congratulations on getting that kindergarten stuff together.
Yoni Iris, 422 Cherry Hill Boulevard. This is a Mr. Goodwin question, I think. Mr. Rossi is departing in 6 weeks, not that we're chasing you out of town. But I was wondering when the board was going to announce the process. There's been the rumor mill, and as we all know, the rumor mill on Facebook is a horrible place to be. I was wondering when the board was going to post that process so that there can be facts and information out to the public, and what the plan is in terms of leaving that seat vacant, or how quickly you'll be filling it as that graduations are upcoming. And I think it'd be nice at graduation season for there to be a full board so that every board member can be present at those very important milestones, be it teachers' retirements and students leaving the district and moving on and such. Thanks.
Rick Short, 1002 Chelton Parkway. Thank you, Mr. Rossi, for putting safety and security first before anything else. Thank you, Ms. Tong, for putting safety and security first before anything else. Thank you, Ms. Neary, for putting safety and security first. Mr. Goodwin, Ms. Seidel, Ms. Sharpolino, Ms. Matlack, and Ms. Schultz, can you please explain to me, possibly, how a wall at Cherry Hill East, a brick wall that is in no imminent danger to fall down, how can that possibly be more important than protecting 14 schools? Newsflash, guys, there was just another school shooting today. 2 people died. It's back in the thing. So what are we missing when we're missing 14 schools with no security cameras? We're missing live feed cameras to the police department. Here we go. Barton, 481 students. Cooper, 218 students. Hart, 391 students. Johnson, 427 students. Kilmer, 377. Mann, 283. Sharp, 367. Stockton, 339. Beck, 866. Carusi, 967. Rosa, 778. Can anyone humanly possibly explain to me how a brick wall without imminent danger of falling is more important than securing 14 schools? It makes no logical sense, ladies and gentlemen. And when you come back at me and you say that you are the professionals, seriously, February 27th, how good was our security on February 27th? We had 4 news vans. We had 3 newspaper reporters. We had 1 radio guy. You've been planning this so many years that your security is so good, and then you bring a consultant in on 8/28 that writes a report, and then on 3/26, just before this budget, that you didn't have a single cent for security? Guys, come on, really? You serious? So, say a prayer now for the 2 people shot at University of North Carolina and the 4 injured, but a brick wall is not more important than 14 schools with live feed cameras, 3M films, and swipe card access. Your security continues to be a joke for another 495 days.
My name is Jeff Potowitz. I live at 110 Kilburn Drive, Cherry Hill, New Jersey. I'm going to pass something else out. Please pass it around. For the record, I was not allowed to pass this out to the board so they could read it. All right? You think that's right? I don't. You think it's right not to answer people's questions when they ask you? I don't. All right? But that's Cherry Hill. That's not Hillsborough. That's not Princeton. That's Cherry Hill. So what I'm reading is that our DCA tax rate is 147.398 above the state average. That's from the Department of Education Division of Finance, Office of School Finance. That means we are paying much, much more than other districts. You should also know that according to the calculations, our uncapped aid now is $25,984,714, not $29.4 million. So they are decreasing what our uncapped aid is. I wanted to show you this all, but you refused to let me so people could actually have it in their hands. All right? We have been cheated, and we have been cheated for over 35 years. The reason why our buildings are the way they are is because we've not been fairly funded for so long. It's unbelievable. And have we been overtaxed? Well, we've made up for it. All right? But 147.398% above the state average for total taxation that's municipal is ludicrous. Our buildings should be in well repair with those tax dollars.
Dr. Potowitz, there is a speaker. There is no reason for you to yell at the board.
I'm
Right?
not.
They
I'm talking the way I'm talking over this.
You're not.
So
There's no reason for you to yell.
I'm
okay?
not
We do
yelling.
have a civility policy.
I'm not yelling, and I'm being civil, and I resent that you're accusing me of that.
Just please stop hollering.
I'm not hollering. I don't know how loud I'm talking, but I am not hollering. All right? What? It's emotion. This is an emotional issue. Thank you. That I feel our district's been cheated so much. Instead, I get personally attacked for really caring about the fact that we've been cheated for so many years. It's unbelievable. Do you care? Does the board care? Because I'll be honest with you, I've read something in some of the literature recently that shows that you may not, that you believe in attacking people, because I saw an attack on NJ Spotlight on the people of this district. All right? And it was written April 22nd, 2019. It is not fair to the district what was written there to the people of this district. other districts were respected when they defeated a bond issue. This district did
Your
not.
time is up. Thank you. Anyone else?
Ann Einhorn, 1017 Edgemore Road. Very interesting that I had a conversation with somebody within the township of Cherry Hill today. And I think that we all come here with a story. I came here with no children. I wanted to come to a school district. I didn't know if I could afford private school. I couldn't afford Morristown. I couldn't afford Haddonfield or Princeton. We came to Cherry Hill. We all have our passions. I do not go for rudeness. There's a certain level of decorum. I apologize to all of you that are sitting here this evening for the attacks, because that's the way I feel that you were approached this evening. I'm no gem. I have my moments as well, but I would certainly not belittle any of you for the amount of energy you have to spend, because unfortunately I do remember what it was like. I'm not against anything. If I had an open checkbook, first I'd buy a house in Rehoboth Beach, and then I would help the Cherry Hill School District. I don't have that yet, okay? But I really want us to remember it's a we community. We are in this together. It's not ADA, it's not security, it's not mold, it's not asbestos. It's a we situation. And I may be Pollyanna-ish, but I do believe that you will take care of business. Right or wrong, there is no right or wrong. We're all trying to do the best we can. We stand here as a community member. We have very vocal and knowledgeable people with their concerns. I like to bring a sense of, I remember what was, which is not always applicable. But I think we have lost the word we for the last 2 years. And it's got to be a we community, because we'll never get any further with this constant barrage of antagonism and distrust. It's got to start somewhere. I would like to be part of the process to help it start. I will do anything I can. I don't believe that there is selective lying that's going on. I've been there. I've been accused of that. It's the emotion that gets in the way, because we don't always listen to the facts. So thanks to all of you who are sitting here, who ran, who are also members of our school staff community, because we really should have to be in this together as a we community. Thank you.
Okay. If there's no other comments, I did want to, I'm going to ask Dr. Malash to address any items that he can that were brought up. As far as filling of the soon-to-be vacant board seat, there will be information that will be going out in May, probably towards the middle of May, after our next after the next board meeting. And there will be a process that will be identified and put out there so that people will be able to, anyone who's interested in applying for that board seat will be able to be submit their interests. It'll all go to Mrs. Sugars, but people will be able to submit their interests, and we as a board will go through that interview process. And I don't have all the specifics. We're going to be working through those details, and we'll be publishing information as to how that will take place. And it will be partly a public process and partly decisions made behind closed doors, and then there will be another public process in terms of who is identified or asked to join the board. And it will be only for only through the end of, or till the next board reconstruction meeting or board organization meeting in January. So it'd be maybe 5 months, 6 months, something like that, from the point in time for that open board seat. And just so you know, there will be, that also means there's going to be 4 board seats that will be open for election in November. 3 board seats for 3 years and 1 board seat for 2 years will be open for election in November. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Malash for any other items that he can address now.
Thank you, Mr. Goodwin. In terms of the questions about the ADA, so there'll be a more detailed discussion next Tuesday at the BNF meeting, where the board will be presented the information. Again, just a reminder, a process administratively, our responsibility is to present information to the board first. We can't present it to the public and then take it back to the board. It's not how the process works. So we'll be going over in detail. I know Ms. Perlman left. She asked about the stages. Any stage that needs to be addressed in terms of accessibility will be addressed. They will not all look the same in terms of what the accessibility will look like, but they will be addressed. In terms of we've known for a number of years and continue, that's where the fair funding's been involved, about the fact that it is out of bounds and way different in terms of the percentage. We're way above 100%, and again, by the document that Dr. Potowitz shared, 147% of what we have to pay in terms of local share. We've known that. That's been an ongoing issue. We continue to address the state. It's one of the reasons we have the commissioner coming. We'll invite the other folks to come down as well. In terms of security, I agree. Security has to be a focus. There's costs and there's real costs that are associated with that. We had and just Mrs. Sugars mentioned it, when we did the referendum back in December, right? We spent a couple of years preparing that, which built on work that was started back in the 1990s prior to the last referendum. I like to talk about, the Chief Monahan, when we did the ribbon cutting over at Barclay, talked about the opening and the identification of the security enhancements, security suite, however you address those multiple things that we did, was more than 5 years in the planning and work that had been done that involved the work with the township. Unfortunately, folks actively campaigned against that referendum question. That first referendum question, yes, there were three, $210 million. That first referendum question would have seen a decrease in taxes. It would have seen the security enhancements at every one of the schools. It also would have seen air-conditioned all-purpose rooms at every one of the elementary schools, not to mention roofs and wall work and other work that was there, right? But folks actively campaigned against that. There were robocalls that folks put out about it. There were signs that went up against it. I agree, security. We spent multiple years preparing it. We are where we are now, making decisions, and I'm glad for the work the ad hoc committee is doing, and I'm glad that people come out. There is nothing wrong with passion. People should be passionate, right? It's the most important thing that we have in our community are these children that come here every day. And again, Julia sits here, she represents tonight by herself more than 11,000 kids, right? And I have to walk into schools and I have to look at kids and I get to talk to Julia about what the experience is. We have to remember that piece. But that's where we are at the ad hoc committee. We have to make decisions, and those decisions are here. So I think that's all of them from tonight.
Thank you. With that, I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn. Mrs. Schultz and Mrs. Scarpellino. Thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight.